And welcome back, everyone, to Global Speedrun Association. We got another Super Mario Odyssey race from the Any% League coming your way. This is the final of the first round of races that we got coming up. This last matchup between LilAggy and LilKirbs. We got the Battle of the Littles going on here. These guys probably going to drop some sick bars for us today. Joining me on commentary is the one, the only Troy of Athens. How's it going, man?
Hey, Dangerous. I am ready for this. Yes, the Battle of the Littles.
The Battle of the Littles. What a coincidence in the very first round that we get the Littles facing off now. You know, both of these guys, of course, substantial runners, been doing this since the beginning. Do you have any predictions coming up in this race? You know what? I think he's too shocked. I don't think he knows.
I'm too shocked. I don't know. I do predict that we're gonna have some good racing going on from here. Both these players very good. LilAggy again, the good practice in knowing his opponent, that being that LilKirbs, who is getting very good times lately.
Yep, Aggie has been showing himself to be a strong competitor. He has been on the PB grind lately and has kind of dashed through the 102 barrier here. He did have a kind of high 102 last week and now is already down to a 102.22 for his PB. LilKirbs, on the other hand, obviously a very strong competitor in his own right, has made a name for himself in GSA competitions. His most recent showing, I suppose, was the Any% fall tournament that happened just a couple months ago, and he went undefeated going into the finals against Chaos Pringle, where he eventually took a fall. But, you know, very good showing, including a frame perfect tie. In fact, LilKirbs has quite the history in competition, so this is definitely not a scary place for him to be. He probably is very comfortable in a race setting. LilAggy, on the other hand, this being his kind of debut into the league as everybody else is, but his tournament performances maybe not quite as stacked as LilKirbs, so maybe that'll be the determining factor here.
And just a little bit of better movement for LilKirbs right now, not affecting too much, as we are just in the beginning of stages of this run.
Yes, into Cap Kingdom, away we go. The first minute, of course, just this movement towards the bridge. Does look like LilKirbs just has a tiny bit of a better line going to this first lever, and then on his way into the frog room here.
Both players making sure to get those frog vectors in.
Yep, solid frog room from both of these guys. Of course, you know, Cap Kingdom being the one that everybody has done the most. You do not see a whole lot of mistakes, even with this trick left side coming up here. Both competitors actually nailing the trick. You know, I've jinxed it in the past, but it's just something that we do so often and so many times that, you know, Cap Kingdom looks pretty clean, pretty fresh. It's very uncommon to see anything worse than like a 225 nowadays.
Right, yeah. Both these players not quite going to be able to get that, like, the elusive, like, 222 or 221. Going to be probably looking at somewhere around 23 or 24. Just a couple mistakes of left side not being the best and topper, both of them going to, like, give him a bit of trouble.
Yes, but very minor mistakes in their own right, of course, to get those 221s and even the elusive 220s that you see sometimes Dansta getting. You do really have to be on the ball and not make any mistakes, no matter how minor. But going into Cascade Kingdom, of course, we approach our first kind of influential trick, that being the FMS trick. And of course, everybody going for this wet version. LilKirbs lining it up first. He's going to be the first one to take a stab at it. Looks like he's going for the wall jump variation and able to get through the wall. LilAggy right behind him.
And Schultz are gifting more subs as he tends to do. Thank you for that.
And to me, indeed. Thank you, Schultzar. Throw the bird pogs up. Throw the fiery clocks up if you got them. Let's go, boys.
Yeah, Schultzer has this little habit of, if a mod doesn't have a sub kind of gives them. He's like, oh, mods to get a sub, parent.
Sharing the love. That's what we're all about. I think the Super Mario Odyssey community is a very generous and very caring one on the whole. So shoutouts to everybody who participates, big or small, whether you're a runner or a participator or a, somebody like Schultzar who just helps in any way that he can. And I, from the bottom of our hearts here at GSA, we thank you.
Yep, and LilKirbs is going to be finishing Madame Brutal first.
Yeah, LilKirbs holding on to that tiny lead. It looks like just a couple of optimal lines being taken by Kirbs over LilAggy is just barely stretching the distance between the two. We're looking at about 3 or 4 seconds. Did look like LilAggy had a little bit of trouble getting up to the dinosaur on his way through FMS. So it is going to put him back just a little bit, but he's still within reasonable pace to make a comeback here.
Right, and we do have the chest clip coming up at the end of this kingdom. That's something to definitely look out for and make sure that people that they are able to get the clip properly.
Yes, and missing this, the way that we've optimized this, does waste about 4 seconds. LilKirbs' position looks really good. He's up there, yep, and he's through. LilAggy going to be looking to follow right behind. And he's through as well. Perfect. And on to Sand Kingdom now. In my opinion, this is kind of where the run really begins. Because as a runner of this game, you tend to kind of cruise through the Cap Kingdom and the Cascade Kingdom. Everything's really locked into muscle memory, but Sand Kingdom is where the tricks actually begin. You start getting things like the Dram Strat, you start getting things like Sphinx Clip. You're more on a timer in some situations, making sure that you are making it in time to grab the bird at the end. So this is where the real divergence begins to happen.
Yeah, it's very important to confidently make the decision between a single clip and double clip on the Sphinx, so that you
Certainly.
can potentially, if you're going for that double clip, you got to be ready and do it quickly so that you have a good bird cycle.
Yeah, most of these competitors we have seen going for the double clip does save a couple of seconds over the single, but you do have to be very quick on your second Sphinx clip, otherwise you look to be kind of unoptimizing the bird towards the end and losing even more time. So can be kind of a safe play, and in a situation like this where points are on the line, if you notice that you are behind significantly coming up to a big trick, it might be in your best interest to play it safe, try and keep the gap as minimal as possible, or maybe even go for the risky strat in order to make up those couple extra seconds. It's really up to the runner, and it's been interesting to see just how the runners approach those kinds of situations, knowing that their opponent could be right behind them. And approaching Dram Strat now. LilKirbs the first to approach here. Setting it up. Going to be going for the non-iceless version, or the iceless version, I guess. His setup looks really good here. And he's going to be nailing the trick. LilAggy right behind. The platform not in their way, which is good. And his setup looks good as well. Looks like he's going to be nailing the trick. Keeping ground with LilKirbs here.
All right, Kitten's joining us again, yay.
Yeah, she is providing some color commentary on the side, as she does. She knows that Sphinx Clip is coming up. This is her favorite trick in the run. LilKirbs first to approach. And just a little bit of a rough setup for him there. I think he was just trying to go a little bit too fast to make it through the very first try. LilAggy able to make up some time, in fact, on that.
Cat getting a bit scared as we get towards the second clip now. You got to get through this very quickly. LilKirbs is successfully through, getting that second moon. And here comes LilAggy going up on it now. Also getting on the first try.
First try for the second clip. That is exactly what you like to see. It's going to make their attempts at this bird much, much easier, as long as they can manage to hold out and not make any mistakes on their way there.
And now on to the Jaxie skip. I'm sure Dangerous, you're having some flashbacks right now.
Yeah, a little bit of PTSD creeping in at this particular trick. The idea here is that you want to aim for that kind of vertical bar. You'll see Aggie hit it right there. If you miss it a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, the wall jump physics tend to not work in your favor, and sometimes you'll just fall right into the instant death poison. Not a good place to be, and it does send you back to your most recent spawn point, which in this case, in both of their cases, would be the Sphinx room, so it does set you back quite a ways.
Yeah, both these players ending it out in the Oasis going to have a pretty standard one, being that they both got that first clip, going to have a very simple bird to get.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want right there.
Oh, LilKirbs just barely missing the single spin throw for the notes here. Aggie
Yeah,
also attempting it and not.
You can really tell that LilKirbs was going for that single throw there because he anticipated it with the jump, trying to just get the moon right away, but was unable to throw perfectly there in time. LilAggy, on the other hand, did notice that he wasn't going to make that single throw, so opted for a cap throw directly afterwards, getting those 2 notes and probably making up just a little bit of time on LilKirbs here. This race is still extremely close.
Absolutely, and we're moving into a kingdom that potentially could have some interesting things going on. Both these players, being that they are very good in their PBs, actually, I believe, have both done late clip before.
Now, I'm not too sure about LilAggy. I'm not sure if he's going to be attempting it in this race. So, you know, it really comes down to the comfort level, I think. It really comes down to whether or not he thinks he can kind of stake a claim and save some time with it.
Yeah, neither of the players are watching our side of the stream right now. They could be watching the restream, but I feel it seems that both these players prefer to just focus completely on their run and not care too much about where the other player is. So it's not going to be any sort of decision based off of that.
Yeah, not in this case. I would be very surprised if LilKirbs does not go for this late clip. And it does appear he's setting up here, getting himself put in the corner. Take a couple extra cap throws just to be safe on his setup. LilAggy opting to not do it at all. Probably the safe play here, but with LilKirbs setup, it looked like he might be just on par with the route that LilAggy is taking. So probably no time gain or lost as long as everybody is able to kind of execute their individual routes optimally. We'll be seeing basically no change through Lake Kingdom, in my opinion.
Right, that is the problem with late clip in some cases, is how long the setup can take in for you to actually be confident that you will end up out of bounds.
Certainly. LilKirbs there, using the down throw to his advantage. A lot of runners who are using this late clip route are switching to the Joy-Cons just for this particular ability. Saves about 1.5 seconds if you're able to just down throw into the cheap and continue along with the route. It's part of what makes the late clip so valuable.
Other benefit being that you don't have to do this boss fight that Aggie has just finished up. And you'll see that while Aggie has gotten the last moon here for the kingdom that he needs, LilKirbs is going to have a much shorter cutscene, just simply loading to the globe, while LilAggy is still celebrating the multi.
And that's part of the reason a lot of the optimization in this game, basically at this point, has come down to how can we eliminate game time that we are not in control, and how can we take control? So in this situation, obviously, the boss fight gives you 3 moons. They're pretty fast, but you do have to sit through a cutscene that wastes probably about 40 seconds just sitting there. Whereas if you are able to kind of put that 40-second cutscene into gameplay, you're able to optimize the gameplay in a way that you can actually save some more time just by getting better at the movement of it. So in a situation like this, LilKirbs did look like he still probably made maybe 1 second or 2 of leeway on Aggie, and that's just how valuable this late clip really is.
Right. Now going into Wooded Kingdom now with the nut clip coming.
And both of these runs really solid. It's hard to really pinpoint anything that might have potentially gone wrong in either of these runs. LilKirbs has had the best wooded segment for quite a while. I'm not sure if he still holds it, but he is known for a very good wooded kingdom. So we'll just have to see if he's able to kind of hold out. And looking like he's getting some first-person issues there. Probably my most triggering circumstances at the beginning of Wooded is being just a little bit too far away from the shopkeeper to activate him first person.
And LilKirbs heading into the Wooded, gonna go for this nut clip.
He's got the setup there, looks okay, and he's through the wall. LilAggy is going to be right behind him. Now, this out-of-bounds movement really will make or break this kind of situation. Got to make sure that you are tight on your movements and get that wall jump in so that you do not fall all the way down. But LilKirbs having no problems, showing that he is indeed the king of the Wooded Kingdom.
Aggie also able to get out of bounds, but it is important to get the wall jump here to get back in bounds correctly.
And he is up and through. Now, taking a little bit of a bad angle on the ramp. Gonna have to try and set up a backup here. LilKirbs, meanwhile, flying through the stage. Did have a little bit of trouble getting up to the fence nut, but he is through past that and on his way into the red maze now.
And Aggie's still not too far behind, as he will be also getting the uproot and going into the red maze. As the Curbs gets that buffer jump and hits the crown of plant, going for the nut round.
Yeah, LilKirbs really showing his prowess as far as his Wooded Kingdoms go. Looked like he was almost about to take a bonk on the fence there. That could have been tragic, but able to avoid that catastrophe, grabbing the Story Moon before 16 minutes, which is exactly what you're looking for, especially in a race setting. He is on very terrific pace. Meanwhile, LilAggy just behind only slightly. He's going to be turning the corner and grabbing the Story Moon himself. Now, neither of these guys did seem to go for the tree route. It's something that's still kind of in development, going for the nut on the top of a tall tree and skipping on the Story Moon. A little bit of a riskier play because you do have to kind of skip the Story Moon, and you don't really have very many optimal backups at your disposal if that's what you choose to do. So potentially just not comfortable with the route yet on both of these guys' part.
And LilAggy also opting to not do Flower Road skip.
Now, did he... I kind of missed it. Did he attempt a Flower Road skip and then back it up? Or did he just not?
I also missed it.
Commentators caught slacking live on camera, but that's okay. He is through the Flower Road and on his way into the tower. Meanwhile, LilKirbs on his way out. So, considering this Wooded was optimal from both of these guys, we're going to see them hop off the tower here. A little bit of an interesting setup from LilKirbs, a pretty risky way of going about it, in my opinion, but he knows what he's doing. So now he's just got to get the nut around to the dead end, I believe it's called. This one is the nut at the dead end, or around the bend. Oh my goodness. There's too many nuts in this kingdom. Too many nuts.
It's okay. You're fine. And oh, LilAggy getting the stuttered landing there. So there is the ways to cancel that, and LilKirbs did demonstrate that before with a little bit of a buffer jump there before you land, so that you kind of just jump right out of it as soon as you land instead of breaking Mario's kneecaps.
Yeah, a bit of a finicky bit of tech in this game, I suppose, is that if you fall from too high a height, Mario will do a sort of animation indicating that you've hurt his legs. You don't actually take any damage, but I like to call it a floor bonk because it's definitely a time waste. There's not really anything you can do. However, if you do buffer a jump, which essentially just means pressing the jump button slightly before you hit the ground, you can, in fact, cancel that out. But the timing for it is a little bit tricky, especially when you're so high up and the camera is not really in your favor to time it very well. So that's why you saw LilAggy take the floor bonk there. But he's still making pretty decent time. He is out of the Wooded Kingdom, sub 19. That is exactly what you like to see, especially in a race setting. LilKirbs having quite the run himself, leaving Wooded around an 1830.
Yeah, and we are looking at about a 27-second difference. I am being that exact because I am that confident. I went by fading to black after the globe cutscene.
Yep, still a very close race. It really could go either way.
Yeah, certainly had a few more tricks to go through before we are really anywhere where we could say that there's a definite lead right now, because we still have all of that time.
Yep, Cloud Kingdom marking about the third mark of the run, so we are exiting the early game and into the mid as of now. Just a quick little fight with Bowser here. Gonna try to throw his caps at us. We're just gonna jump over him, grab him from him right away, set up kind of a manipulation here where we punch him to a faraway platform, which sets him up to just bounce one platform away, saving about a second and a half there. All of these boss fights in this game tend to be kind of predictable and scripted. There's not a whole lot you can really do to speed them up except for using the capture mechanics to the best of their ability most times. But in this situation, it's just trying to punch him to a faraway platform in order to shorten his distance. Both of these guys getting a perfect Cloud fight. LilKirbs on his way through loss now, and this is a scary place to be.
Yeah, still continues to be a scary place, as any small mistake can cause disaster and cost you up to like 2 minutes even.
Yep, that being mostly because your last spawn point is the Odyssey. So if you ever hit this instant death poison, you get sent right back to the beginning. And of course, if you're towards the end of the level, somewhere in the ballpark of where LilKirbs is, that is quite the journey to get back to where you last were. So you do have to be really careful here. LilKirbs flying through the stage, though. And LilAggy not far behind at all.
Let's see this cage triple from Kirbs. Kirbs coming up.
Oh no! He's taken a fall in on the cage triple now. This is exactly what we're talking about. I'm not sure if the Torpedo was able to blow up the cage. That is something that we're going to have to discover right now. If not, then LilKirbs is in a bit of a dire situation.
I believe he panned his camera up there too. Oh, it's not exploded at all. That is not good. So and the missing the trying to do a cappy bounce to get up there and to get the Torpedo. Get to the Torpedo area while also deactivating Klepto.
And just like that, this race has turned around. LilAggy taking the lead, did get the triple jump just fine. He does have the final moon under here, even if he doesn't make it out, which he is. He's taking the safe route to get up on top of the bridge. So he is going to be leaving Lost Kingdom first. LilKirbs, you can tell that the panic is setting in here. Missed the cage triple, missed the backup, trying to get back. Now he's just going to try and take this as easily as he possibly can, but just like that, the lead has completely shifted in LilAggy's favor.
And
bonk.
That is not as big of a deal right now. We'll be just spawning right back at the globe with all 10 moons.
The attempt to get back on top of the bridge is probably what wastes the most time, unfortunately. But he is in the Odyssey, but now he is going to be having to claw his way back, and this is exactly what we mean. Lost Kingdom is a treacherous place to be, very unforgiving. And not only that, but you know, in a run setting, when you are just trying to go for PBs, any death and loss is basically just an instant reset. However, in a race setting, when you have nothing to do but continue going forward, you know, the tilt can be real and the panic can kind of set in. And I think that's exactly what's happening with LilKirbs right now. So he's going to have to bring his mental state back here in order to kind of come back into this race. But LilAggy is running away with it now. He is on his way through Night Metro already in his first moon. LilAggy getting the Goomba bounce as well. Pretty solid Night Metro from Aggie. LilKirbs going for that canopy jump and the optimal dive to set up the triple jump there. You know, LilKirbs is really going to have to play out of his mind, I think, at this point to really catch up. Now, it really can't be understated, we are still within the mid-game. So even though LilAggy has taken a pretty commanding lead, we're about one city hall away from each other. It does look like LilKirbs is actually going for this this Goomba Heck strategy. I'm not sure exactly what the name is, but I'm just going to call it the Goomba Heck strategy. Opting to skip the elevator cycle entirely in favor of that 1 second time save. A very risky play, but this is exactly what LilKirbs needs to be doing now. He needs to be looking at ways that he can kind of take advantage of some of the riskier strategies in order to pull himself back into this race.
Right, those do exist, and especially for the time difference that is there right now and where we are in the game, there are those opportunities that LilKirbs does. And he may not know exactly what the difference is, but he does know that he certainly should be behind, given the mess up that he had in Lost Kingdom. LilAggy onto the second Mecha Wiggler phase here with the shots. Oh, that last piece of the Mecha Wiggler not quite cooperating.
He had a phenomenal
are
pattern.
Notorious in this game.
Yeah, the hitboxes for this boss specifically are probably the worst element of kind of RNG, I suppose you could say, in this game. The pattern that you get is RNG, and then combine that with the hitboxes not really acting the way you believe that they should. LilKirbs with a phenomenal 2-cycle Wiggler there. I don't think you can really ask for anything better. The shots that were being fired by the Wiggler were actually too slow to hit him at all. He didn't have to take damage because they just weren't fast enough. And so LilKirbs definitely going to be looking at a little bit of time save on Aggie through there. Both have phenomenal Night Metros. Just LilAggy's Wiggler setup just a little bit slower, I would say. But he is holding on to the lead coming into Day Metro. And now this is a pretty technical place. There's a lot of timers involved here with taxis, as well as a couple of big tricks like this one LilAggy's going for. Does get the drive-by scooter clip here. But slowing down in this initial part can really kind of mess up the rest of your Day Metro until you reach Pauline. So going fast is really the key strategy here. LilAggy is going to be beating the taxi by quite a margin, so he's safe. LilKirbs right behind still, getting the scooter clip on the drive-by and up into the Trash Moon himself.
Yep, and a completely clear street to cross.
Yeah, that's exactly what you like to see.
Kirbs also having a similar streak going on. I don't even know where that taxi is. But we don't need to find out, as LilAggy is now moving on to Pauline, and Kirbs is crossing that street too.
LilAggy disrespecting Pauline on the way by. We ain't got no time for Pauline. We are trying to go fast. We got to get those band members. We got to round up the bassist and get on our way. Looks like LilKirbs might have had a little bit of issues inside the girder or something along those lines, because that taxi was almost right in his way, but able to avoid any catastrophe there. Meanwhile, LilAggy, though, is having a phenomenal day Metro so far. Of course, Commentators Curse coming in strong, taking a bonk on the plug. Yeah, and LilKirbs, you can tell, crawling behind with that nice spin throw roll cancel. Very, very stylish strat. And that strategy is very distinctly LilKirbs. You usually see 2 roll boosts into a long jump and spin pound, but he's got the roll cancel into a dive. Very, very stylish stuff. Of course, we always say that spike points do count for something, so got to give props to LilKirbs for that one. Now, a couple different approaches to that trash moon that you just saw. LilAggy going for a dive into a spin pound and then a single jump across. Probably the more consistent and safe way of doing it, but LilKirbs opting for the spin pound into a roll cancel, keeping his speed and into a triple jump. That is the optimal way of doing it, but can be kind of hard to set up, and if you lose your speed, then you're obviously going to be losing some time to it.
And Kirbs getting the spin pound off of the top of the town hall, saving a little bit more time off of Aggie there.
And these guys are just creeping like closer and closer together. LilAggy towards the end of Day Metro, just showing a little bit of spaghetti, you could say. Didn't get the Cafe Moon on the first ground pound. Took him a little bit of searching to find it. And we are within the same sub area all of a sudden. LilKirbs really showing how strong he is in these mid-game kingdoms.
Yeah, able to find those little things while keeping the movement of the rest of the kingdom very smooth.
It's phenomenal. And while LilAggy is the first to warp to the Odyssey, LilKirbs is probably less than 10 seconds behind at this point. Still anybody's race. We are about halfway through. And you know what? Even despite the mistakes in Lost Kingdom from LilKirbs there, we are still looking at a sub 31 time coming out of Metro, which is phenomenal, especially in a race setting.
Yeah, that less than 10-second difference between the two players. Moving into Snow Kingdom.
Now, this outside movement looks a lot simpler than it actually is. Getting those optimal roll boosts across the snow, and then having to deal with a bit of a tricky camera as you approach this hole to get into Shiveria. A little bit of a tricky area, but both of these guys getting the roll cancels off and into the hole. It is phenomenal how close this race is still.
Oh, Curve's messing up a little bit of movement, getting this moon by the boxes. Trying to do some really optimal things going on there, but for once, not able to get that movement to work out for him.
Yeah, if you can pull off the movement and it's in your repertoire, you might as well try it, I suppose.
Like at the rate that's going on here, okay, nope, didn't happen. I almost like partially expected LilKirbs to at least attempt the moon clip there.
While the clip itself is not entirely difficult to pull off, it's the out of bounds portion that is potentially really scary. So, you know, falling into the out of bounds section, it counts as a death. You'd be sent back to the beginning of Shiveria, and you would have to kind of make your way, do a walk of shame to get into this Taifu room. So, does save about 1.5 to 2 seconds if done optimally, but you can't really expect these runners to be taking some risks. You know, with how close this race is, it might be in their best interest to play it safe. But of course, neither of them do have the live feed going at the moment, so they're kind of going in blind. They don't really know what the pace is like, but they have to know that they're close.
All right, gun pipe suck from LilAggy. And LilKirbs going into a spin pound for it.
And you know, despite Aggie putting on a solid effort through the Snow Kingdom, through the Metro Kingdom, LilKirbs just taking the slightly more optimal lines through everything that he's doing through these kingdoms. And you can really tell that it's kind of adding up. That being the exception there, looks like LilKirbs did not get the Goombas to stack on that button as optimally as he wanted. So it did just have to take a little bit of backup to be safe. But closing the gap ever so slightly.
And we are approaching Snowdram for both of these players. A very important trick that could mean a lead change.
Yep, and there's a lot going on with this trick here. Of course, the setup itself could even be enough to change the tides of this race. If LilKirbs does go for the setupless version, where you just quickly enter first person and you're good to go. If LilAggy takes a little bit of extra time to put himself in the right position for Snowdram, that's all that could really change the tide of the race. But LilAggy does have his Snowdram set up, and he's through. He does get the jump. LilKirbs right behind, both nailing the trick. Back to the Odyssey now.
It did look like Kirbs was able to get a bit of a faster setup there.
And into the very, very nice roll cancel off the edge of the cliff there, only having to single dive back and, you know, just barely making up a little bit of time on LilAggy through the Snowdram here. We're within about 5 seconds, I would say.
Yeah, we are turning into a very close race here, going into Seaside Kingdom.
Now, Seaside causing a little bit of troubles for racers in this tournament, or in this league, I suppose, already. It is kind of a relaxing kingdom that's not the most tech-heavy, except for the dry portion, I would argue. So this very first jump up the cliff to get this first moon, many different ways of approaching it. You're going to see LilAggy dive into a triple jump. Probably a little bit of a slow setup here. LilKirbs a little bit faster on the setup, making up just a little bit of ground here. The next big trick, of course, coming up being the Flower Rocket refresh.
And that being a trick that can be kind of finicky at times. It's very important once after getting the spin pound correctly to go underwater and then resurfacing, that you actually make sure to get on the platform without getting the moon. And that is a very important part of it. Otherwise, the whole setup before that is pointless.
LilKirbs looks like he was trying to take some very optimal corner cutting there, but did take a couple bonks trying to get up the cliff and through the cavern as well. LilAggy approaching this Flower Rocket refresh. Gets the ground pound off first. LilKirbs right behind. Looks like he's just going to opt not to do it at all. Potentially safe play here. LilAggy does grab the Flower Rocket refresh, and he is on his way to the next one. Does pull off the trick, means that he will be saving about a second of optimization over LilKirbs. Didn't get the 2 frame, but we don't really see 2 frames in races at this point. Nobody really trying to go for those. And now it's all fish movement, and a lot of this is just taking optimal lines through the water. Not a whole lot of time to really be lost here, with the exception of some fish bonks. You see LilAggy taking one already. LilKirbs just took one as well.
Fish bonk's actually taking less time than a land bonk, but It just seems more devastating. It just feels like more annoying because you're in water.
It just looks so defeating. That's the problem. It just does not feel good to fishbong.
Aggie going to be the first one to get out of Seaside Kingdom. Again, that final moon.
And warping to the Odyssey, looks like the lead is relatively unchanged. LilKirbs did have some trouble on the dry part of Seaside. LilAggy, on the other hand, had what you would probably consider a textbook Seaside Kingdom. And clinging onto that lead as we go into Luncheon.
And still within that 5-second range of each other. In a very important kingdom. One that can cause a lot of trouble for
Yep, you're not wrong. Luncheon Kingdom has been the claimant of many world record paces in the past. Starting with this salt pile triple, LilAggy the first to approach. And you can see LilKirbs, again, just doing the small optimizations that really count for something. Right out of the cutscene, he is going for a buffered spin pound into the salt pile triple, where LilAggy going instead for a dive into a roll, which, you know, on the surface is probably extremely minor, but the LilKirbs does have indeed the world record time for Luncheon Kingdom at the moment, and it's these little things that really do add up in a kingdom like this.
And Kirbs even doing some first-person manipulation. I didn't even know that there was some sort of thing going on here at this boss fight, but if Kirbs is doing something, it's typically has good reasoning. So I'm guessing there is.
In this particular case, the first person is just for swag points.
Oh, okay. Damn.
Yeah, he just likes to get up and close and personal with Spewart. You'll probably see him do the same thing in the second Bowser fight as well, if I had to guess. But LilAggy not showing any relenting here in the first part of Luncheon. Still holding on to that several second lead. And didn't look like he took quite the optimal route to get out of that room, so LilKirbs again making up a couple extra seconds.
Both of them opting for the same... Oh! The same route here with out of that door. And Kirbs tripping up a little bit on the climbing right now.
Yep, the geometry in this place, of course, notoriously bad for just not really understanding what is floor, what is ceiling, what is wall. Can be very hard to tell. LilKirbs trying to go for the optimal dive there. Looks like he accidentally missed the crate with the hat throw. LilAggy just a little bit unoptimal movement with his golden turnip setup though. Trying to go for the bonk. Does look like he's going to grab the moon, but just on the edge. This race still incredibly close. You can tell LilKirbs is using his best ability to try and catch up here. Now LilAggy looks like he's going for the camera manipulation setup here. The safer but potentially slower version of getting this Potaboo at the end. But you can tell that this is exactly what LilKirbs needs to creep up. He is all of a sudden just on time. They're entering the sub area with LilKirbs with a tiny advantage coming in here.
And this movement in this room could be very important. The little things here going on, trying to get the smallest distance between the capture point and Mario itself, so that the animation is the shortest. And Kirbs is a little bit ahead, it appears.
Yeah, just with the Forks room, that's all it took to change the tides. LilKirbs has about a second lead. Oh, LilAggy. Oh no, he's falling. Okay, he does get back up on the wire platform here. He does have 1 health, though. He has to be very careful what he does coming up to these. Make sure he doesn't hit any Goombas on the way by. Gonna be climbing the cliff, grabbing a turnip. Almost falling down there, and actually did fall down. LilAggy gonna have to climb back up the cliff and grab a new turnip. LilKirbs looks like his setup for turnip clip is not fantastic. He was able to clip through. It looked like the turnip, in my opinion, a bit too far to the right, but he did make it work. LilAggy setup definitely going to be needing a reset here. That turnip looks okay. He's just got to clip through the cage now and make his way in. But just like that, LilKirbs showing he's flexing his strength in the Luncheon Kingdom, showing who's boss and taking back the lead.
And that really is how close we are still, that we are able to change the lead on just 1 sub area.
1 sub area and 1 trick, and that's all it takes. LilKirbs back on top. And really, only a couple minor mistakes come to mind on LilKirbs' part here for his Luncheon Kingdom. Oh my goodness, LilAggy just able to make the dive across to that safe platform there. Didn't look like he had an optimal line. Oh, and he's taking a bonk and falling all the way into Pepto-Bismol below. He's going to have to make the climb all the way back up. This is an unfortunate Luncheon Kingdom for him. Going to be trying to set this up safely, hopefully. And he is up to the meat, twitching the meat and going up into the soup pot. But just like that, LilKirbs showing just how strong his Luncheon Kingdom is. Coming out on top, coming out of here. And into Ruin Kingdom. Now, did you know that a couple of days ago was Appreciate a Dragon Day?
In fact, it was. I mentioned it on the day of it.
Ah, there you go. It's, you know, it's the day that you appreciate the best of mythical creatures.
Yeah, and this is a very good one. Very well drawn and animated, and it's very pretty. But it's also pretty annoying, as it is the giant roadblock into what could potentially be an easy sub hour is now just like, where do we find the seconds?
Yeah, certainly. If this dragon were to provide us with a ruined skip of sorts, then I would appreciate him much more, to be sure. Now, despite the kind of hiccups that happened in Luncheon Kingdom, it really cannot be understated just how well these runs are still going. LilKirbs having a little bit of difficulty in Lost Kingdom, maybe losing about half a minute, but still on pace for probably a mid 101, if I am not mistaken. He has played very, very clean up until that point. Of course, I am jinxing it a little bit here. Getting a little bit risky with the dragon, taking all of the damage that he can, except for one. He's going to have to refill his health and keep the rest of the fight clean. But of course, this is ruined. There's no real trouble here.
It's not like anyone's died here.
Yeah, you would hate to see that, you know. So interesting optimization strategies from LilKirbs. I don't know what he's trying to do. Maybe the nerves are really getting to him. Maybe he is aware of just how close this race actually is. But, you know, that Ruined Kingdom was scary. That was one way to put us on the edge of our seats, for sure. Down to 1 damage for 2 of those phases. But everything is fine. He's on his way to the next kingdom, which is Bowser's Kingdom. LilKirb's having a little bit of difficulties with his timer by the looks of it. So we will just have to go off of LilAggy's for what these times are. But these guys both finishing off the dragon. No problems here. On to Bowser's Kingdom. And, you know, this is another really scary place to be. Not so much the hardest kingdom in the run, in my opinion. I think that by itself, it is technical, but not entirely impossible. Looking at you, Wooded Kingdom or Luncheon Kingdom. However, it being at the very end of the run, the nerves are high, especially in a high-stakes environment like this. You just never know what is going through these runners' minds, and taking mistakes in Bowser's Kingdom can be costly, especially because we're going to be trying to avoid as many checkpoints as possible.
Oh, LilKirb's taking the bonk there. Just before the golem here. Gonna be trying to get the good movement.
Yep, gets the optimal ogre kill there. Still holding on to a pretty commanding lead. LilAggy just entering Bowser's Kingdom now. Gonna have quite the ground to make up after that Luncheon Kingdom. But he's starting out pretty strong.
And the timers being the way they are, we are going to have to do a retime at the end of this. So we won't know right away what the results are, but it is still going to be cool to see. The runners are still generally synced right now. We can't get full confirmation, but I haven't seen any lag from either stream, so they do seem to be in the same spots they were before.
Yeah, we'll get a pretty good idea. If LilKirbs does manage to finish first, we can always use LilAggy's timer for a bit of a comparison there.
Kirb's getting some pretty good shards movement.
Very slick. Yep, and into the roll cancel there at the end. That's very marvelously done. Exactly what you like to see from shards. Kirb's really showing, again, his kind of technical prowess, taking the optimal lines. Now LilAggy approaching the shards portion for himself. Going into that roll cancel. Doing the triple jump. Looks like he's going for the dive back and does get it. Very, very stylish movement from LilAggy here. Up on top of the roof. Going to be going for a roll into a roll cancel. And then on the other side of the roof, there's another shard here. Going to be capturing the Pokio and getting the last one. Again, very good movement on the shards from LilAggy as well. And now LilKirb's on his way into the boss fights. Picking Harriet first, of course, the optimal strategy.
You don't know what you're talking about.
What do you mean? And I have definitive proof, you know.
A guide made by Nintendo who never meant for the game to be run like this. Do you think the devs understand what the optimal route is?
Alright, listen here. Now, the Prima Strategy Guide is official by Nintendo. However, that was not my proof. I was going to say that all purple coins does Harriet optimally, because there are purple coins on the left side. So if it's optimal for APC, it must be optimal for everything, right?
I will find something.
LilAggy also taking the optimal choice, it looks like. Going for Harriet first. LilKirb's finishing up the topper fight and on his way into the final portion of Bowser's. Now, of course, this run is far from over. The gap between them is probably about 25 to 30 seconds, I would guess. Actually, probably a little bit more. But that being said, we do approach some very scary elements towards the ends of this run. The Mecha Brutal coming up next. Going for that Harriet third strategy is probably what you're going to see both of these runners go for. and a fall on that last phase of the mech fight is probably the most costly. So hopefully both of these runners are able to pull that trick off, but it could really, it's still anybody's game. LilKirbs getting the very stylish triple jump around the corner to grab the crates. Interestingly enough, nobody really goes for that Pokyodram moon at the very beginning of the kingdom. It's something you only see Ekwon go for. It has been proven that if you get the optimal movement with the triple jump, that we are talking of about an optimization of very, very, very small amount of time to get the crates moon instead of the Pokyodram. But you could argue that the Pokyodram strategy is a little bit more consistent. LilKirbs flashing his strategy that only I see from LilKirbs himself. A couple other runners have been trying to do it, but they just don't pull it off quite as slick, where using that tiny little bar on the side of the wall to kind of flick the Pokyo forward towards the big wall. Very stylish LilKirbs strategy there, optimizing. Ooh, and here we go. This is exactly what we're talking about here. So LilKirbs having a little bit of difficulty climbing up the leg. Did back it up just fine, didn't have to reset up the climb at all. But he's going to be losing some time here. LilAggy is going to be taking advantage of every little bit that he can. And LilKirbs setting up for Harriet third here. Does just a backflip into a ground pound, setting up along the line there. 2 dives into a spin pound, and he is through the mecha brutal fight. LilAggy just entering now. A little bit more of an optimal climb. It'll be interesting to see. I'm not sure if he is confident in the Harriet third strategy. We might see him try to pull it out, knowing that he is potentially a little bit behind. See the setup here as the brutal turns around. Kind of hard to say. Okay, he is going to be going for Harriet fourth instead. Oh, and he actually takes a ground pound off the side of the mech and falls all the way down. He's going to have to wait for a Pokyo to spawn in order to climb back up. This is a really unfortunate situation. You know, a lot of top runners have actually said Harriet third is a little bit safer just for that reason alone.
Yeah, it's a really bad spot to fall off of the brutal.
Gonna have to back it up. Does get the Speward hit there, and now just has to make his way back on top of the mech and get that ground pound on Harriet to finish off the fight. Not the worst phase of the fight to fall on, but definitely is going to be regretting that. Losing just a little bit more time. LilKirbs pulling just a slight bit ahead. And you know, as we enter Moon Kingdom has some of the most punishing time losses. But if LilKirbs is able to hold on and play safe throughout the rest of this run, it will basically be up to LilAggy to just try and optimize as best as he can to squeeze out as many points out of this race that he can. Yeah, LilKirbs first through the Moon Kingdom, rolling across, getting solid vectors there. Didn't look like he had to take an extra dive to make it onto that platform, which is exactly what you like to see. Literally rolling through the stage, getting the 2 rocket flowers just fine.
And coming up to Moon Skip. Yep, up to the Moon Cave skip.
Ooh, that setup does not look good. It looks like he's gonna... Oh, he did make it. All right. Opting for the side flip strategy there. Very risky indeed. If you jump too fast, it counts as a buffer jump and you might not get your cap bounce. But LilKirbs not having that problem at all. Into the cathedral now, at 58 minutes. Now, you can look to kind of optimize this final portion in about 4 minutes, give or take a couple of seconds. So entering at 58 means that we're on track for a very high 101, potentially a low 102 from LilKirbs. LilAggy's vectors not quite as optimal. Did have to take an extra dive just to get on the platform, but he is rolling through the stage as well. Going to be grabbing these rocket flowers now. Rolling just one too far. Sometimes the inputs on the moon can be a little bit finicky. It's hard to kind of gauge just how hard you have to shake in order to get your roll cancels to work and stuff like that. But LilAggy is on the Sphinx, going to be setting up for the moon cave skip. LilKirbs, meanwhile, in the second phase of his fight, just finishing off Bowser's hit here. LilAggy's up the cliff, got the moon cave skip and into the cathedral, entering at 59. It looks like 59.16. So on pace for a low 103 for himself.
Still a fairly good time from both players.
Absolutely.
Keeping a good difference between them. Not too big.
They are within the Bowser fight, so literally all LilKirbs needs to do is make a mistake and take a death. Either here, obviously not here anymore, or in the escape, and LilAggy is right back in this. If LilKirbs takes a fail in the 2D skip, that's about 45 seconds of time loss. And while that might not be enough for LilAggy to catch up fully, it could bring them close enough that even the pillar room could decide the fate of the match. So all eyes are on LilKirbs here as he approaches the escape sequence, making his way up the cliff, doing the triple jump to break open the bridge, and into the 2D section. Very stylish 2D skip from him. Very, very solid execution. Busting his way through the 2D section very handily and up and through. That's exactly what you like to see in an escape sequence. That is textbook stuff from LilKirbs. Going to be entering the pillar room now, and it really does come down to this. As long as he plays it safe, as long as he stays alive, he will be indeed the victor of this match. LilAggy right behind. Of course, he did just finish up the Bowser fight and now into the escape himself. So really, if LilKirbs messes up here, if LilKirbs takes a death, somehow falls into one of the holes, LilAggy will be running away with it at this point.
LilKirbs getting some pretty good fireballs on that first pillar. Won't have to deal with it too much, just going straight to the second.
Very optimal pillar room from LilKirbs here.
And as you say that, he misses a fireball.
Oh, and it doesn't look like he actually broke that final pillar. So he's going to have to finish that off. Getting a couple of unoptimal shots. But does make it work out in the end. He is on the final platform. He is basically safe and sound. Going to bust open this rock. We're looking at a very high 101 from LilKirbs here. Solid effort. LilAggy, on the other hand, getting that 2D skip, breaking through the 2D section, and he is on his way into the pillar room himself. Not far behind. All eyes are going to be on LilAggy now to see how much points he can accumulate from this race here. Looks like LilKirbs did finish with a 101.57. And just the pillars now for Aggie. Those are fireballs, very errant. Doesn't look like he really got a hold of any of those, maybe just one or two. So he's going to have to come back around and finish that pillar off. Probably the optimal thing to do in a situation like this. Busting open the third one, going back to the first.
So yeah, similar situation that Kirbs had to be dealing with here. Going to be getting a between a 1 and like 130 difference here.
Shooting out of the wire at 103.14. So by my math, I think that means that LilAggy will be picking up 11 points from this race. I could be off by 1 or 2, I'm not sure. But, you know, really keeping pace with LilKirbs throughout this race. Very solid effort. Just a little bit of spaghetti in Luncheon Kingdom, mostly determining the fate of this race. Meanwhile, LilKirbs is going to be coming away with the W here. And after that Lost Kingdom, I think we were all a little bit scared that LilAggy was going to run away with it, but LilKirbs stayed strong throughout the remainder of the run. And even with 30 seconds lost in Lost Kingdom, he's still able to pull away with a 101.57. So incredible performance from LilKirbs and LilAggy both. And we're going to have these guys join us in the voice call for a moment for a little post interview. I see LilAggy in the call here. LilAggy, what is going on?
Okay, so we can go to Curbs first if Aggie is having the mic troubles right now. So, Curbs, how are you?
I don't know. I can't say I'm too disappointed in the run. Other than that one major mistake, I played all right for not doing runs for like a week. So I'll take it. Obviously, got to get some more practice and more consistency and all that, but I'm satisfied with it.
Yeah, just Lost Kingdom was really the main issue there, and you could kind of see the panic to try and back it up set in a little bit with the what looked like an input drop actually to try and back it up the second time, taking the death there.
Yeah, it was both a combination of me not knowing what to do in that situation, and then also I was having some problems with like dive drops a bit earlier today, so that come into play, both of them in combination, just a little bit more time loss.
And it seems that Aggie's mic is working now. I did hear a little bit of.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm not sure what the issue was.
Doesn't matter too much as we can hear you now. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm mostly satisfied with that race performance. There was obviously a couple of hiccups that weren't super great, but and in terms of like big mistakes, honestly, the only things that I would say were like 100% my bad were that fall and luncheon right at the very end, and obviously Mecha Brutal. The rest of it was I've been fighting controller issues, so I got like 3 or 4 spin pounds to go the exact opposite direction of what they were supposed to, so that was frustrating. And then yeah, I just had some issues getting motion controls to activate for homing throws, like that fall and luncheon into the lava for a couple burns. That was really bad. But yeah, overall, I think pretty strong. I was on PB pace for most of this.
Yeah, you did have a really solid showing all the way through until probably luncheon, I would say. Very solid pace, and then just a little bit spaghetti at the end. But overall, a very close race between the two of you in this first round. So, you know, you really can't ask for much more than that. I think you walk away, Aggie, with 11 points by my quick math here. So, you know, keeping the race nice and tight, able to scrape by some extra points.
All right, yeah.
And LilKirbs taking the W, of course. So he will be moving on with 40 plus 9. I'm not sure where that places you on the standings, but a good, solid showing for the very first round of this league. And that concludes round 1 of the league. The very first set of matches, we've seen everybody play. We've seen kind of where everybody fits in, and you know, it definitely leads to some exciting matchups coming into round 2. The very next one that we have coming up is actually a match between myself and Arolme on Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. So if you guys want to catch some Super Mario Odyssey action, be sure to check us out then. In the meantime, there's definitely some more Speedrun League action for all the other games coming your way tomorrow, starting bright and early at 2 p.m. Eastern, going through till 10. So no matter what game you're into, no matter what your flavor is, GSA has it all. So make sure you stay tuned for that, and we will see you next time. Thanks for joining us.